You never realize how terrifying a house can be until you wake up in the middle of the night and feel someone watching you. Many people think Airbnb is just a temporary place to rest, but some houses have their own stories. Stories the police still haven't fully solved. From houses with hidden eyes in the ceiling to parties that ended in blood and chaos, they're real, documented, and stranger than any horror movie you've seen. So sit back, take a deep breath, because after hearing these 3 stories, you'll never walk into a quiet room comfortably again. And remember, in the end, you'll hear something that will steal your sleep forever. The smell of damp wood and coffee steam filled the air. Sunlight slipped through the thick curtains onto the wooden floor, and the sound of the kids' laughter echoed from upstairs. Jason smiled at Ellie and said, "See? Told you this house was the best choice. Clean, quiet, safe." Ellie smiled, sat on the floor, and said, "After 3 years, finally, a real vacation." But not even 2 hours after they arrived, the atmosphere changed. Jason was looking for Wi-Fi. The list of networks popped up on his phone, and right there, one strange name caught his eye. IP camera, living room. He laughed for a moment. What a funny name. Must be the owner's joke. But the signal? It was strong. Way stronger than normal Wi-Fi. A signal coming from downstairs, from this very living room. He walked to the middle of the room, lifted his phone, turned around. A tiny red light blinked from the ceiling. He stood under it. It looked like a smoke detector, but something was off. Shiny screws, a brand new case, not a speck of dust. For a moment, he felt something staring down at him. He brought a chair, stood on it, opened the detector. A small circuit board fell out with a black lens in the center, and behind it, a memory card. Ellie said, "What did you find?" He didn't answer. His hands were shaking. He picked up the card, went to the laptop. The screen lit up. The video opened. At first, darkness. Then the image appeared. The same living room, the same angle, but different people. A woman walking out of the shower in a towel. A man changing clothes. Ellie screamed, covering her mouth. The kids ran downstairs. "Mom, what happened?" Jason said, "Quiet. Just stay quiet." His voice was trembling. Their hands were shaking. Tears gathered in Ellie's eyes. Outside, the rain started, pounding on the roof. Everything felt heavy. One sentence kept echoing in Jason's mind. How much of us did they see? They called the police. When the officer arrived, he said, "We've seen this model a lot. Wi-Fi camera with internal storage, streams directly. But for that family, it wasn't just a crime. It was a betrayal. Because the feeling of safety isn't something you can get back." From that night on, every time they turned off the lights, that little red dot on the ceiling still burned in their minds. The sound of police sirens echoed down the street. Red and blue lights danced on the house walls like a heartbeat racing from fear. An officer walked in, boots still wet. "Where is it? Show me." Jason handed him the open detector. The officer examined it and said, "Yup, one of those cheap Chinese models, built-in Wi-Fi, streams directly to a laptop. Ellie asked, "So you mean someone is watching us right now?" The officer shrugged. "Not sure, but probably yes." Jason walked to the laptop. It was still open. The cop said, "Don't touch it. Let the digital team handle it." But the screen was still showing a frame, a still image from the night before. A man with a baseball cap, right in front of the camera, adjusting the lens. Jason said, "That's him. Must be the host." The officer asked, "What's his name?" Jason showed the reservation card. Name, Michael Harvey. Silence fell, only the sound of rain. Ellie sat in the corner of the living room, holding the kids. The little one asked, "Mom, is that man still watching us?" Tears slipped down Ellie's face. "No, sweetheart, not anymore." But she didn't believe her own words. The police confiscated the equipment and told them they had to stay at a hotel until morning. Jason sat in the car, staring at the ceiling. Raindrops slid down the window. That night, not a single word was spoken, because some fears can't be spoken, only felt in silence. The next morning, Airbnb called. A formal voice said, "We apologize for the incident. The host has been removed from the platform." But Jason only said, "Do you even understand what it feels like to know someone was watching you, even in your sleep?" A few days later, the police contacted them. The memory card contained dozens of files from previous guests, names, dates, faces, all recorded. The officer said, "We checked the files. Some are from months ago, but this last one was from last night. You were the last." Ellie lowered her head, tears in her eyes. In that moment, they realized they were never truly alone. Jason closed the laptop, his breath shaking, and whispered, "No one had the right to steal our moments." That night in the hotel, the lights went off, but sleep didn't. The ticking of the clock, the sound of rain, the shifting shadows on the wall. Every tiny thing felt like a threat. Ellie said, "You know what the worst part is?" Jason said, "What?" "That even when I go back to my own home, I'll still feel like someone is watching me." Silence. Jason just looked at her and said, "We'll never be the same again." 3 days had passed, but none of them had slept. The story had spread across the media. Hidden camera found in Dublin Airbnb. Police investigating. A photo of the house, the smoke detector, and even Jason's face next to the car. A reporter asked him, "Did you know you might be watched?" Jason simply said, "If I knew, I would have never stepped into that house." Police arrested Michael Harvey, the host, a retired engineer, someone who had worked in security for years. He claimed the cameras were for guest safety, but police found memory cards proving the recordings had been going on for months. The files had names, dates, times, even labels. One of them said, "Family, 2 kids, July 18th. That was Jason and Ellie's family. The trial began. Reporters filled the room. Wooden benches, silence. The judge said, "What we saw was an invasion of humanity, not just a violation of law." Michael only looked down, and that's when Ellie cried, not from fear, but from anger. She said, "He didn't just steal our image, he stole our peace." After the trial, the police showed them the memory card. "Do you want to see it?" they asked. Jason just shook his head. "No, I never want to know what he saw." That night, they returned to their own home, but it didn't feel like home anymore. Ellie covered the bathroom mirror with a towel while showering. The kids slept with the lights on, and every time the ceiling creaked, Jason instinctively looked up. Their fear wasn't of cameras anymore. It was of trusting again. One day, Jason stood in front of the mirror, staring at his own face. Under his breath, he whispered, "When someone steals your sense of safety, you become a stranger to yourself." The final news report played on TV. Airbnb introduces new security rules. Host sentenced to 8 years in prison. But no law could ever give them back their sleepless nights. That same night, when everyone was asleep, Jason picked up his phone, opened the camera, pointed it at the ceiling. For a moment, the light flickered. He chuckled to himself and said, "I don't even trust my own shadows anymore." In the next 10 minutes, you're about to be shocked, because I'm going to tell you something that will change the way you look at safety forever. The air was cold, and fog hung heavily over the Orinda Hills. A big house with a pool, orange lights, and black and orange balloons hanging from the ceiling. It was Halloween. The house had been rented by a girl named Carla through Airbnb for a small family gathering of 12. But when night came, what happened had nothing to do with a family party. At 8 p.m., the cars began climbing the hill, one by one. First, a few cars, then 10, then 20. Music could be heard from 100 meters away. The electronic gate stopped working, and people pushed it open by hand. Carla stood in the yard with a drink in her hand, a fake smile on her face. Neighbors called the police. "There's an illegal party. It's out of control." The police said, "As long as there's no violence, we can't do anything." By 10 p.m., over 100 people were inside the house. Teenagers, college kids, even strangers nobody recognized. Laser lights flooded the ceiling. The smell of smoke and heavy perfume mixed in the air, and loud rap music shook the walls. But somewhere in that chaos, there was a cold feeling, a sense of being watched, a sense of something waiting. A boy in a black jacket and baseball cap walked in, hands in his pockets, face hidden. Carla asked, "Who is he with?" No one answered. 10 minutes later, the power went out. Only the glow of phone screens remained. The music was still blasting, but through the noise, a single sound cut through. Pop. Everyone froze. Then a second. Then a third. Screams. Running. Bottles crashing. Glass shattering. Gunshots. From every direction. People dropped to the ground, the floor soaked in blood. Carla threw herself behind the couch. Someone screamed, "Call 911." 5 people died on the spot. By the time the police arrived, the smell of gunpowder still hung in the air. On the floor lay shoes, cups, and a Halloween mask, soaked in blood. One neighbor said, I saw several people running out the back door, covered in blood, screaming, "He's still in there." But no one ever figured out who he was. The next morning, the headlines were everywhere. 5 dead at Airbnb Halloween party in Orinda. Carla was arrested, but later released. Airbnb announced no more party rentals. But those 5 people never came home. The mother of one of the victims said, "That night, my child went to have fun, but instead, we received a white coffin." The morning after the shooting, the Orinda Hill was filled with police cars. Yellow tape, reporters, camera flashes. A rental house that was supposed to be full of music and laughter was now delivering 5 bodies. Carla, the girl who rented the house, sat on the curb with a blanket over her shoulders, her eyes empty, staring at the asphalt. Under her breath, she repeated only one sentence: "I just wanted a small party, just a party." Police said the shooting started from outside the house. An unknown group had come up the hill with guns, but the motive? Still a mystery. Some said it was gang rivalry. Some said it was random. But for those who were there that night, it didn't matter. Laughter ended with screams. 3 days later, Airbnb released a statement. The CEO appeared on camera and said, "From this moment, we are banning party rentals. Hosts who break the rules will be permanently removed." But people commented under the post, "This rule is for the 5 coffins sitting in the morgue." The media named that night the Orinda Massacre. Documentaries were made, podcasts released, but no matter how much was said, the pain didn't fade. One survivor said, "That night happened in a blink. Gunshots, smoke, screaming. But ever since then, every time I hear a balloon pop, my whole body freezes." After the incident, people started doubting everything that looked harmless. A rental home, a party, a friendly gathering, every simple smile had a shadow behind it. And that's when Airbnb finally understood. Trust isn't something you sell, it's something you rebuild. In some neighborhoods, people even put signs on their doors, "No Airbnb here," and fear became a global wave. But one question remained unanswered. That boy in the black jacket, with the baseball cap, who walked in and never showed his face. Who was he? And why didn't any camera record him? 3 weeks after the shooting, the blood was cleaned off the floors, but the stains stayed in people's minds. Police were still searching for the main suspect, but had no solid evidence. Every day brought a new rumor, a new picture, a new video, but none of it gave answers. In Airbnb's headquarters, an emergency meeting was held. The room was full of executives, lawyers, security experts. On the whiteboard it said, "How to restore trust." Someone said, "We need a 24/7 security team." Another said, "Every host must go through real identity verification." But someone in the back said, "No policy can stop fear. Fear only disappears when trust returns." Meanwhile, people on Twitter, TikTok, Reddit were sharing their own stories. A girl wrote, "Once at an Airbnb, someone unlocked the door and walked in at 2 a.m. Said it was a mistake." A man wrote, Since then, every time I travel, I sleep with a pocket knife under my pillow. But the strangest thing was the silence of the hosts. None of them wanted to do interviews. Even the innocent ones were afraid guests would fear them. Within 1 month, thousands of bookings were canceled. The company's stock value dropped, and police announced no one had been arrested yet. That night, the Airbnb CEO posted, "Starting tonight, the Airbnb global security team is active 24/7 in every country. We promise every guest, every host, every home will be protected." But people only replied with sarcasm. Trust isn't something you buy. On TV, the mother of a victim said, "That new policy, it won't help my son. We didn't want rules. We wanted safety." The narrator takes a deep breath, voice lowering. Some wounds can't be fixed by any update. Because one night, someone just wanted a few hours of fun. And now, the whole world is wide awake. The screen fades to black. A sentence appears. Laws can stop a criminal, but not a memory. If you've made it this far and this video hit you, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next real stories to come. There was a young Scottish couple, Jenny and Mark. They went to Glasgow for a medical conference and booked a stylish Airbnb apartment. Clean, bright, shiny wooden floors, and a soft vanilla scent in the air. Their host was a man named Dr. Andrew H., an anesthesiologist, polite, smiling, round glasses. He opened the door and said, "I hope you have a comfortable stay. If you need anything, I'm downstairs." Jenny said, "He's a doctor. I feel safe. At least he's trustworthy." Mark laughed. "Yeah, what could be worse than a doctor?" The first night was perfect. Clean shower, comfortable bed, soft music. But one tiny thing caught Jenny's attention. A scent spray bottle on the shelf next to the mirror. Clear, polished, but oddly heavy. Mark said, "Forget it. These people are just neat freaks." The next morning, Mark tried to pick up the spray. The label on the back was partially peeled. He pulled it off completely. Behind it was a tiny hole in the center of the bottle. Light went through it, and something inside glimmered. Mark shouted, "Jenny, come here!" With a pocket knife, he opened the bottom of the bottle. A circuit board and a micro SD card fell out. Silence. Only the ticking clock. Jenny's voice trembled. "Tell me you're joking." Mark said, "No, this is a camera." His face turned pale. He grabbed his phone and called the doctor. No answer. He threw the phone aside, ran to the laptop, inserted the card. The file opened. The image was them last night. In the room. Same angle. Jenny couldn't breathe. Tears burst out. Mark was frozen. He opened another folder. Older dates. Different faces. Men. Women. Even families. They called the police. Officers arrived within minutes. One said, "This isn't a prank. This guy has been doing this for a long time." Investigation revealed Dr. Andrew had done this for years, in multiple apartments. As a 5-star Airbnb host with a trustworthy image, he had been recording his guests' private lives. His trial was packed with reporters. One victim said, "He wasn't just a thief. He made me feel unsafe in my own home." The judge said, "This is not simple voyeurism. This is psychological torture." When he was sentenced to 9 years in prison, Mark said, "9 years isn't enough. He took our peace for life." From that day on, Jenny checks every place she goes. She touches mirrors with a cloth, opens smoke detectors, and never sleeps without the lights on. She whispered a sentence that still echoes. "If a doctor can do this, then no one is safe." The psychologist on Andrew's case said, "This crime isn't about watching, it's about power. When someone knows you don't know and they're watching you, they get a godlike feeling. That rush makes them repeat it over and over. But for the victim, that power flips. It becomes helplessness, powerlessness, distrust of everything that once felt safe. The shower, the bed, the house, even their own body." Months after the trial, Jenny said, "You know what the worst part was? After it happened, I couldn't trust any smile. Every kind person, I wondered if they had a hidden camera." Mark said, "It's not just a memory anymore. It's a shadow. It goes to work with you, comes home with you, sleeps beside you, wakes up with you." Police confirmed 22 victims from different countries were found in Dr. Andrews' files. Some never even knew they'd been recorded until they saw their own faces on the news. The media exploded with debate. Some said, "We need new rental laws." Others said, "It's just one sick man." But one analyst said the thing no one wanted to hear. "This isn't just about one person. It's about us, about the blind trust we give." The psychologist continued, "Real fear isn't someone watching you in the dark. Real fear is not knowing who is watching." That sentence hit people like a hammer. Sales of hidden camera scanners online skyrocketed. Everyone tried to take back control, but no device ever restored the peace that was once normal. The narrator's voice drops, deep and slow. When fear enters the human mind, it doesn't leave. It just changes places. One day you fear the mirror. Another day, a stranger's eyes. And that's when you realize safety is a shared illusion. It exists only as long as everyone believes in it. And once one person breaks it, it's gone. There's a sentence that shows up in almost every real case. We never knew if that moment we felt someone watching us, we were wrong or we were right. Imagine you were Jason. If you came home at night, lay down, and saw a tiny red light on the ceiling, what would you do? Would you walk toward it? Quietly take it down? Or pretend you didn't see it? Wait until morning and act normal. If you were Carla, that night when the party spun out of control, would you stay and try to fix things? Or run away and live the rest of your life drowning in guilt? And if you were Jenny and Mark, when you discovered the air freshener was a camera, would you call the police? Or would you go to him first and take justice into your own hands? Let me ask you something. If you knew someone was watching you without permission, but you didn't know where they were, could you sleep? Could you smile? Or would your mind start searching for the eye? Right now, in the house you're sitting in, just look around for a moment. Smoke detector on the ceiling? Wall clock? That little light that's always on? Are you sure they're only doing what you think they're doing? If you were that family, and in the middle of the night, you realized the ceiling was watching you, Would you run outside or stay until the police arrived? And why? 3 stories are over, but if you paid attention, none of them truly had an ending. Jason still checks his ceiling every night. Carla still wakes up to the sound of gunshots in her dreams. And Jenny? She still flinches every time she sees a mirror. But all of them had one thing in common. They all thought, "It won't happen to me," until it did. Real fear isn't in the dark. It's in not knowing. You start to truly feel fear when you realize how easily you trusted. A host, a house, a system, a name. All of them were just one click away. And that one click opened the door. So think about it. When you walk into a new house, how sure are you that you're alone? Maybe behind that mirror, there's a hollow wall. Maybe that faint sound in the ceiling isn't just the wind. Maybe that tiny red light is an eye watching you right now. Tonight, before you turn off the lights, take a flashlight and check everything. Not to be scared, but to finally wake up. Because this is only the beginning. In the next episode, you're going to see something that even the police are afraid of.